Watch as I stumble my way through the making of these unusual holiday cards, featuring semi-failed jelly plate monoprinting, silver and gold paint, and newspaper collage. As a mostly digital artist in this age of the machine, I've been wanting to kind of reconnect with handmade art. So with 2023 winding down and Christmas and Hanukkah and all the other holiday friends right around the corner, I thought I'd try to make some mixed media collage pieces that I can send to clients and family and friends. Or if they don't turn out that good, maybe I'll just send them to my enemies. That's a warning shot. Anyway, let's get cozy and jump right in. Alright, so I went to my local art supply store, and by local I mean citywide monopoly, and I bought this gold ink, as well as some cheap paint brushes, a printmaking brayer, and a jelly plate. That's this clear rectangular thingy you're seeing here. I've done a bunch of monoprinting before, but I usually do it with plexiglass. I wanted to try the jelly plate because I've seen a lot of videos where people do cool stuff with it. Like a total amateur, I applied nowhere near enough ink here, so I decided to try again. I also found that the brayer I got doesn't seem to work all that well. It's more of a paint roller. I should maybe have gotten that harder rubber kind. But in a way, I didn't mind that this was so blotchy and textured, because the whole point of this exercise for me is to get away from precision and perfection, and embrace accidents and human touch. I want this gold ground to be uneven. So let's try that again. This looks better. It kind of almost looks like a Rothko. Don't laugh, I said almost. Here are some subsequent Rothkos I made. No big deal. Sotheby's keeps calling me. Here I'm painting with a dark bluish ink on a cutout rectangle, with the aim of rubbing that off onto the card to eventually become a fireplace. And actually, I'm making 4 of these cards at the same time, so it's not just one piece. You'll see me moving between 4 different but similar executions throughout this video. Obviously, I need to make more than 4 holiday cards, but it's a start. I'm thinking I might make some other card designs in a future video, so I guess subscribe? Some of these ended up a little faint, so sometimes I did it twice to get them darker, but I really like the textured look I achieved here. I think it has a fitting vibe for a fireplace. Next, I'm drawing a template for the fireplace mantle. I did this really slowly and awkwardly because I was thinking about what I wanted to do as I was doing it. I didn't have a sketch for any of this, I'm just flying blind. I did a video about that just the other week, and if I understood marketing, I would tell you now to watch that after this. But I mean, you know, you do whatever you want. Because I'm a fool, I somehow didn't think about how the other half of the mantle would have to be flipped, so I ran into some trouble here. By turning the newspaper cutout over, it works in terms of shape, and I thought the photo on the left side was sort of an interesting accident that maybe could work, but I decided to stick to my original idea of only using white newspaper with text on it, as that looked more like the sort of stone fireplace mantle I was going for. I had read some recommendations for what glue to use for collages, and this Uhu stick came up a lot. I have to say I found it a bit underwhelming. It isn't very strong, and it honestly doesn't perform significantly better than the glue sticks we used in kindergarten or whatever. And at least those smelled like delicious marzipan. Although I can attest that they didn't particularly taste like marzipan, in case you were wondering. Here I'm looking through an interior design magazine looking for wooden floors. I found some different ones to use and applied them to my fireplace scenes. I especially liked how this one with a big book fragment worked. For this one, I tried more of a deconstructed approach. I found this picture of some beautiful Indian ladies wearing shiny outfits I thought could work well as flames for my fireplaces, and also for my sexual fantasies. I'll make a video about that on my OnlyFans. Anyway, this was quite satisfying, and I think it came out pretty good. Maybe a little duller than I had thought, but at least that did make it feel well integrated with my overall palette. Next, I needed to draw some circles to make wreaths, and I dug up one of these cheap mini bowls that a restaurant kept sending to us during the height of the pandemic, when my wife was ordering these weird pudding dessert things. And then for the inner part, I used the lid to a salt grinder. So these circles are quite culinary. By the way, if you're trying to read this text and wondering if you're suddenly having an aneurysm, I can assure you that you're most likely not. This is from a Norwegian newspaper I brought home from my trip to Oslo this summer. Fun fact about me, I've been a New Yorker for a couple of decades now, but I'm originally from Oslo, Norway. Next, I decided to add some silver paint around the edges of the newspaper circles to mimic some organic textured edges to these wreaths and kind of soften things. I immediately regretted that choice, but I went through with it for all 4 cards anyway, thinking I would layer things on top and maybe it would all work out in the end. So then I made more circles and cut out little jagged pieces to layer on top of my wreath shapes, covering some of the silver paint, but hopefully making the whole thing a little more cohesive. I think it worked reasonably well, and these are the 4 final pieces. And here they are, in glorious sepia monochrome, all trimmed up and ready to go. I'll show you some photos now of the final results, as I surreptitiously encourage you to please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Now, do I think these cards are amazing works of art? Not really, but I don't hate them. And I'm happy that I took the time to do some traditional art and experiment a little bit with something I'm not that good at. It felt like I was back in art school. Minus the drugs and threesomes. No drugs or threesomes were actually had.